This is the Borderless Crypto Podcast. Hello everyone, I'm your host, George Manilov, and in this series I bring you exceptional entrepreneurs, investors, hustlers, and thought leaders from the cryptocurrency and fintech space.
In this episode, I'm talking to Preethi Kasireddy, the founder of TruStory, the only place on the internet where you can have a truly constructive debate on cryptocurrency topics. This is a place where, unlike Twitter, where many people go just to argue, prove how smart they are, or, simply stick to their initial point, here on TruStory, people are looking genuinely for the truth, or at least all sides of a particular story. What is more, you can make money by debating on the platform. Preethi is a fascinating builder. After studying engineering and working 100 hours a week at Goldman Sachs, she joined the leading VC firm Andreessen Horowitz, only to realize that she wants to become a founder herself. This made her drop her dream job in order to learn how to code on her own. After a brief experience as a software engineer at Coinbase, she went on to start TruStory with the mission to bring meaningful debates back into society. I really enjoyed this talk, and I hope you do as well.
Please note that anything that I or my guests say in these talks is for informational purposes only and should not be treated as investment advice. And although during daylight, I'm part of the team behind the crypto lending platform Nexo, at night, when I do these talks, I share only my personal thoughts, which in no way represent Nexo's opinions. Now it's time to get the podcast started in 3, 2, 1.
Before we talk about TruStory, could you please share a little about your experience in Goldman Sachs? I heard from other interviews that you have done that you've had a quite intense experience there. This was basically the first place where you worked during college, right?
Yeah, I interned there as well as did a full-time job there as well.
So I've heard a lot about the intense experience there. And as you mentioned, in a lot of the times you used to work anywhere between 80 to 120 hours per week.
Yeah.
So since this is a place where a very select group of people go, how did you think about this? Like, how did this affect you professionally? Could you just share, how did it feel? What did you learn from it? Is this something you would recommend to others?
Sure. To be honest, my entrance into Goldman was serendipitous. Like when I was in college, just like most other college students, I was still trying to figure out what I want to do, what I want to be. Did I want to be an engineer or did I want to do something outside of engineering? All that was still pretty unclear. And so what I did in college was try to meet as many diverse people as possible so that I can see what really intrigues me. And so even though I was an engineer, what I was doing was I was going to career meetups and different events on campus that are not engineering related. And I remember going to one investment banking meetup where I got to meet some really cool people from investment banks. And at the time, investment banking was like still one of the, reputable things to do. It was competitive, it was cutthroat. It was really hard to get in any kind of investment banking job. And if you got it, like you're one of the handful of people from that college that got into it. And there's a whole process for getting into investment banking. Like you study, you interview, you have like all these books and things that you need to learn for these interviews. So it was like this whole art of how you get an investment banking job. And with engineering, it was the complete opposite. Like there's no sense of urgency because when you graduate with an engineering degree, it's not like you can't get a job. Like usually if you have an engineering degree, you'll end up getting some kind of job. Whereas like the business students, it was very competitive. And so they were starting to like think about what careers they want to take on, et cetera. And so I kind of fell into that group. And on the side, like in my nights and weekends, I would hang out with the business people. And through that, I met someone at Goldman and he just really enjoyed our conversation. So he invited me over to coffee and then he pushed me through the interview cycle, got me an interview. And long story short, I ended up getting an internship there through just hustling and meeting people at Goldman. And once I got an internship, I spent 2 months there, and then I got a full-time offer. So that's when I moved to SF. And to be honest, I'm an engineer by training and by heart. Like, I love solving problems. I was a math and physics geek in high school. In college, I also was a math and physics geek. And so for me to do something totally outside of any of the hard sciences and go into banking, it was a very different mindset. Finance is very different from engineering. Finance, it's not problem solving per se. And so personally, I didn't find that I was super intrigued by finance or investment banking. And as a result, I wasn't necessarily excited about doing my work. So I wasn't really doing that great of a job. And I knew that kind of feeling of this is not what I want to do was starting to eat up at me. But at the same time, I can't say that it was a mistake to go to Goldman, because Goldman has some of the best training in the world. And especially when you're junior, when you're just out of college, I don't really think it matters particularly what you do. It's just about who you're working with and how quickly you can learn in those early first couple of years. And with Goldman, obviously you're with the cream of the crop. It doesn't get any better. And then 2, they have an incredible training program for people out of college. So even just for the training and the first year of being on the Goldman floor and working that hard, 80 hours, 90 hours a week, meant I was basically working double what a normal college grad would be working. So in 1 year, I learned what I probably could have learned in 3 years if I did something else. So as much as I didn't like my work, I still don't regret it at all, because it allowed me to land in a place where I can learn from really smart people, learn really quickly, and it gave me a starting point to build my network as well.
So did you enjoy your time there? Or was it you pushed through it?
I pushed through it. I enjoyed it because of my colleagues. We always were very collegiate. It was a small class. My class on my floor in the tech division was I think 6 people. And so it was very tight knit. And, we were in the office all day, all night. And so we got very close. So I enjoyed that part, the camaraderie, but it was not something I was super passionate about. And I can't say that I hated it, but I wasn't passionate about it.
And then after you graduated, you went back to Goldman again, right?
Yeah. So what I'm talking about now is kind of the collective of my experience with Goldman. During the internship, it was a little bit easier than the full-time role because, they understand that you're an intern and so there's a learning curve. Whereas the full-time, you kind of just get thrown into the ringer.
And then at some point, I guess you decided that this is not the thing for you and you started looking for something else.
Yep.
And how did you end up in one of the most respected, if not the most respected, venture capital firms, A16Z?
If you want the real answer, it was a cold email. I don't come from a prestigious family. My family's not wealthy. They're middle class. They have no network. And so I'm out here in California alone trying to build my career. And whether it was Goldman or A16Z or Coinbase, a lot of these came just because I hustled for it. It's the same thing with A16Z. When I figured out finally that venture capital is something I want to try out or at least understand more, I had sent a bunch of emails and one of them was A16Z, and I got a reply from them and they started with a coffee meeting, and 3 months later ended up getting an offer there.
What was the email like? Was it just text? Did you include your profile? How did you approach it?
I think it was just text. There was no profile. I was very authentic and honest about what I'm doing, what I want to do, and what I can offer. And yeah, it was 2 paragraphs. It was nothing elaborate. But I think one of the things I got really good at in college was understanding how to send out cold emails, because that was my only way to get any kind of job. Every single job I've gotten was through a cold email in college. And so I just learned how to articulate my skills and what I can offer.
And where did you get that hustling type of attitude towards everything you do? Was it from family or was it from school or from your friends?
I think a part of it is innate. I've always been very driven and I don't like the idea of wasting my time on this planet. I feel like I was put on here to do something and I want to do that. Secondly, I don't come from a very wealthy family. Like, in fact, my family's somewhat poor. And so I wanted to kind of break through that and be able to afford the things I wanted to afford, et cetera. And I knew to do that, I had to work hard. And lastly, I'm the oldest child. And there was a period in my life where I basically 4 years where I had to raise myself and live without parents. And so I kind of just became a very independent person from the age of 4 onwards. And as a result, I just have this innate drive to just go.
Love it. Awesome. So how did your experience in A16Z compare to that in Goldman?
Night and day. I loved A16Z. I still cherish my time there.
Did you work less? Did you work more?
I mean, I worked a lot for sure, just because but I enjoyed it. It was something I was eager. I was like learning, and I was meeting really high up people and just like sucking knowledge up from people that were way smarter than me. So I didn't feel like work. It felt like something I was passionate about, and I loved it. I would totally go back at another point in my life. I just don't want to do venture capital right now.
And then at some point, so as I again listened to and read about your story, you decided that you want to build stuff, right? You don't want to be just at the seat where you review founders, but you want to be a founder yourself. And that's how you ended up learning to code on yourself and eventually went to Coinbase, I guess, or discovered crypto. How and where did you discover crypto?
It was a slow process. It was not like this one aha moment. And I actually wrote a blog post about it where I said it was called It's Not Too Late to Break into Crypto. I first got introduced to it when I was at A16Z. And we had made that investment in Coinbase, and I was starting to learn about Bitcoin and understand what the thing was. But I wasn't like obsessed with it back then. And I kind of went in and out, just like kept it on something as something I would learn on the side, but not something I was deeply involved with. And then I went to go off to learn to code. And then when I finally was trying to figure out where I want to go next, I remember talking to Chris Dixon, just asking for advice. And he suggested that at my stage in my career, I should pick in an industry that's growing and has a lot of potential, because then I can make a big impact there. And to me, and also what I was interested in, and the two that it came down to was either crypto or machine learning and AI. And I looked into both very deeply. And for some reason, I don't know why, it was more of an innate feeling. I just chose crypto because something about it was new. It was different. It felt like it was a feeling more than a rational reason for why I chose crypto. But I just felt like I aligned with the values and the community of crypto. And so I decided I want to just be part of this. And then I ended up joining Coinbase as an engineer. And after that, I was just sucked into crypto forever.
I guess at this point, let's jump into TruStory. The listeners who don't know about TruStory, what is it about and how did it come to life?
Sure. So TruStory is a social network where people have productive debate about various topics, whether it's crypto, programming, etc. And the idea has kind of come about. It's evolved into what it is today. Originally, what we were building was a product where people can make claims and we would validate those claims using a community of people. So if you go out and said, Trump said XYZ, then we'd have a community of people who validate whether that's true or not. And that was kind of the original vision. But when we first launched the product, what we started to notice was that people were way more engaged in the types of claims that were more subjective in nature, but were more debatable. And so rather than saying Trump said this, it was more about Trump saying this is bad for technology or something. Like there's an assessment there. You're trying to analyze and understand and debate something, the meaning of something. What does this mean? What does this imply? How does this have an impact on society? So those are the kinds of things that people were trying to do instead of purely validating claims. And that's when I realized that like our users are telling us something else. Like they're telling us they want to use this to debate. And that's when we really took a hard look and decided that like we wanted to give users what they wanted, which is a platform to debate. So we built that. And we released that a few weeks ago. And overall, it's been like going like really well. And so, yeah, the platform is the product to debate, and we're just getting started. There's so many topics to debate already on there, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, that was actually the reason why I got truly intrigued by this whole concept, because like when I saw this idea of debating, because I personally got into debating when I was in high school. There was a high school team, and I was always like since very early interested in politics at the time. I wouldn't say so much today, but at the time, very much, just would watch it, public debates on TV, analysts and so on and so forth. So I got drawn into debating, and I used to debate for quite some time, competitive debating in high school and then a little bit in college. And I still, up to this very day, value this experience a ton because, on the one hand, helped me develop my thinking, helped me structure arguments, helped me just build logical theses, like way more than probably anything else that I did in my traditional education. But I never really found a platform or an online version of this sort of debate society. And this is what truly got me interested, because at the time when I was debating, it was always about me and a few other kids in the club. And I think that's pretty much in most places where people debate, there's this limited amount of people who have this interest. And you never really had this online place where you have the right tools to, I would say, like to argue for the just genuine intrigue and interest in finding the right arguments. But also, like, if you want to even train yourself to build good arguments.
Yeah, exactly.
So therefore, I'm super intrigued about this and how it goes. And in particular, I was super impressed about how you're involving crypto into this whole model. Could you explain this? Like, because you also have a token that is inside the TruStory platform, right?
Yeah. So going back to your first part, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like one of the things I really want to bring back into society is productive debate, because debate is probably the most powerful way to have healthy discourse. Like one of the things that's completely gone down the drain, the shithole with the current internet and Twitter and everything, is that like you cannot have a healthy debate and conversation. And so people kind of talk over each other, yell at each other, but there's no solid arguments. And so that basically hinders our ability to make any kind of progress in the world. And it's really cool and really invigorating to see that there's people out there who do care about having healthy discourse, who want healthy discourse. They just haven't found a place yet. And one of the things we've noticed is our early community, I'd say there's actually quite a few people who are either high school debaters currently or who were high school debaters. And so they see this and they're like, wow, like I didn't realize a digital version of this could exist.
Right.
But yeah, so I totally agree with that. And secondly, with the token. So we definitely have involved crypto in this. And there's a few reasons why it's such an important part of the product. And to explain why, I need to kind of go back and explain kind of the current generation of social networks and what I believe the future of social network is. And so if you go to the current internet social networks, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, the way they have built their monetization and business models is they get a bunch of users and then they monetize off user data. So they're incentivized to get as many users as possible so that they can have as much data about them as possible so that they can then serve the best ads and make money from ads.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine and all. That worked in Web 2.0, but I think people are getting much smarter now and they don't want to be tracked. They don't want their data to be monetized. And so we're moving through this like shift in people's way, like they don't want to sell their data. And so there's a shift in mindset. And I think the future of products and social networks is not going to be by selling data, but it's through, I think, like intrinsically building something valuable and monetizing off the value that the actual network builds. So in our case, like the token is the system to not only moderate the content. So whenever someone creates an argument, they stake some true stake. And as a result, they start earning every time someone finds their argument compelling. And so it's one is like the people who are debating productively earn through TruStory. And secondly, like through this debate, they're producing like really, really valuable insights. And that insight, like you can't even attach a monetary value on that. Like it's so good. And it's just like tiny community now. So over time, as this scales, you can envision that like the token value will be tied to like the quality of the information being generated from the product. And so it's not about monetizing people's data, but about giving this information a price. And this was never possible before without crypto. But now that we can build this entire thing on a blockchain and have a monetary system attached to it, like we can finally price something like this and give it a market value. And if I can go back in history, I would love to be able to give Wikipedia the ability to have, some kind of value, right? It gives society so much. It's given society so much, but there's no way to value that thing. There's no monetary thing built into it. Whereas like, I believe the future of networks is that it's all going to be monetizable, and it's not going to be by people. It's going to be by the actual, what's monetizable on the platform.
That makes total sense. So do you think that one of the significant incentives for people to come there on TruStory is actually also to make some side revenue or something?
Yeah. And so that's definitely one reason. So there's the monetary part, and you're not going to make your 10-figure income on TruStory, but it's a nice little chump change that you can spend on stuff. And then there's two things. It's that monetary stuff. And then there's the social capital, right? Like anything you do on the internet, we're all status seeking monkeys, as this guy Eugene would say. And so people are building their reputations on TruStory. And so those are both reasons why they're contributing today.
So if you could talk a little about the incentive model and the monetary model, I guess, behind the TruStake.
So TruStake is an inflationary token, and how much it inflates yearly depends on how active the community is on the platform. And so there's two ways we're generating rewards. One is by inflating the underlying token. So every time you stake and agree with an argument, or every time you write an argument, we inflate a little bit of TruStake and give that as reward. Secondly, we're building this functionality where rewards can also be earned by people sponsoring a debate. And so you use TruStake to sponsor a debate if you want to see the top 3 arguments for that debate, and you can pay out based on whoever writes the top 3 arguments. So those are the two ways that rewards will work on the system.
And then where is yourself and your team's part in all of this? What is your business model and how do you make this sustainable?
So the beauty of building the token into the platform is that the users, the team, and the investors and the validators, we're all in this together to try to accrue value to the token. And so if we do a good job, all of us collectively do a good job accruing value to this token, then TruStory makes money by taking, for example, one way we can make money is by taking a small fee on transactions. Another way we can make money is hosting certain types of debates or summarizing certain debates. Or if you do a good job of accruing value to the token, then it becomes obvious how we can make money. So this is a huge part of crypto that I think most people don't fully understand yet, and is probably the most powerful part in my opinion. It's we're moving away from the model of there's these investors in these companies who are making the most money out of their users, from that to where everyone collectively is sort of sharing that profit and the value that is being generated by the platform, which is how TruStory is built to live and to run.
So to summarize it, you don't yet make money, but you have many ways to monetize, and it's going to be a matter of time to figure out what's the best way to do that.
Yeah, the monetization will come from the token, and if we do a good job accruing value to the token, then we monetize.
So you yourself as a team have a part of all circulating supply, I guess? And
we don't have a part of all circulating supply. Like I said, for example, one way we can monetize is we take a small fee of transactions. Another way is every time TruStake is being inflated, we may choose to take a small cut of that to fund the development of the product and the platform. Those are examples. We don't have a pool for ourselves. That's not the model. It's what we want to do is we want to tie our monetization to the success of the platform. And so that means like if there's activity on the platform, we should only make money when and if there's activity on the platform. We shouldn't make money just because we built something. So that's how we envision it.
So do you think that such a platform like TruStory would have been possible before crypto or without crypto?
No, because there's no fundamental incentive alignment, nothing to align incentives. What they have to do is they have to build something that gets a ton of users and then make money off the user data.
All right.
That's a very different way of building a product and business than what we're doing, which is we all collectively make money together. And like if you're not enjoying the platform and you're not using the platform, then we don't make money, and vice versa. It's like the ownership and the monetization is shifting and being more balanced across all participants and stakeholders instead of just the company and the investors making all the money from it.
So this other key part in the TruStory ecosystem, which you basically said just not in this direct way, is that people, when they stake true stakes, essentially they're putting in skin in the game, so to say, to the arguments that they're writing or to the arguments that they're supporting. So in other words, they have something to lose in theory, which like in case they support the wrong claim or the claim that is not substantiated strongly enough or doesn't make sense. So is this incentive of skin in the game and the way you've built the system big enough in order to prevent certain groups of people to be changing the debate? The reason why I'm asking is because as you spoke and as I went through the platform myself, so I had the privilege of being one of the first testers this week. And as I went through it and started thinking about it, I thought this is like, for me, it was intellectually interesting and curious. And I'm sure for a lot of people it will be. But over a long enough period of time, if you continue to build it successfully and attract more and more and build a quality type of audience there, I believe that this can be a venue not just for, so to say, entertaining debates or for debates where people just debate for their own curiosity or interest, but this could also turn into a venue where large public debates or public questions are being discussed. So to give you the reason why, I fear that in a lot of ways, the existing public debates today in society, in whichever country you go, are not efficient at all. Like there's in representative democracies, you have, these politicians which are chosen there, which are supposedly experts in pretty much everything. And then they have their sorts of debates where they discuss certain topics, they take decisions, but in a lot of times, experts or in people with specific knowledge cannot really contribute that debate. Their opinion cannot be heard. And so because the system is kind of flawed and is so 18th or 19th or 20th century, the wrong decisions often are being made or the meaningful arguments, I fear, are not being heard out there. So I'm thinking out, this could be a great venue long-term for meaningful, countrywide, global-wide debates to be happening for specific or for very specific policies to be voted upon or discussed upon on a public basis. The only thing I'm fearing, is there any way for people with interest and with capital to manipulate those debates?
Yeah. So what we do is we have limits. So how much you can participate on the platform, how much credibility you've earned on the platform. So we don't allow this, if Trump wants to buy up a bunch of true stake, like he actually has limits in place of how much he can influence any conversation until he's accrued enough reputation on the platform. So it's not like he can just come and wreck the conversation. He would have to earn that privilege by writing good arguments in the past. And then once he's done that, then he can sort of have a more meaningful influence. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard for it's not just based on money. Even if you have a lot of money, you start on the platform with a zero reputation. And so what you can do is limited. Whereas on Twitter, anyone can join Twitter, like a celebrity can join Twitter and overnight have, 10 million followers. On TruStory, you'll join TruStory, but you're not going to have 10 million followers. Everything you do is based on how much you've earned on the platform, if that makes sense. So everyone starts off at the same footing. And I think that's a huge part of what actually has been making our community successful, because we have people from Zimbabwe or Thailand, Philippines, and they have like really, really compelling arguments to make, and they just haven't had a place to voice it. They're not celebrities. They're not like well-known, reputable people. So even if they try to say it on Twitter, like because they don't have necessarily the network or the following, it doesn't get heard, and it kind of gets dissipated. Whereas on TruStory, like their reputation is based on the strength of their arguments. And so now like they feel this sense of being heard. And I think that's powerful. I think very few platforms offer that, if any.
I couldn't agree more. Again, that's one of the reasons why I think there's a huge potential in this. Now, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of what is the strength that you as a company have over this platform. Because, for example, I had a talk with Bill Altman, who's the founder of Minds.com, and they're trying to build this open source social media platform. So you can think of open source Facebook or Twitter. And his proposition basically was that on Facebook, Twitter, etc., you have no clue what are their algorithms, and you have no clue what they do with your data. You don't know why you see the things that you see on these platforms. So in that sense, as TruStory grows and as you start having lots of debates, lots of topics, lots of arguments, there would still be some sort of algorithm that sorts all of these out and helps the user, decides what the user will be seeing. So what is your opinion on this? What is your stance on this? Do you think that this should be open sourced or public information or domain in some way?
Our ethos, we're built on crypto. And so our ethos is to open source the back end and not hide anything. And there'll obviously be some parts of the front end user experience and API that are proprietary. But I think the mindset and the perception of how people feel about these algorithms and being controlled is shifting. And so I don't think we have a choice. Like we have to give users that information.
Great to hear this. It would definitely strengthen your narrative, I believe. So what is your goal for TruStory in the coming year or 2 or 3? Like what is your immediate goal and longer term goals as well?
Sure. In the next year, I would say our goal is to continue. I would say one of the biggest differentiators about TruStory is the community. And it takes a lot of thought, a lot of effort, a lot of groundwork to build that right. Because we have a set of values and guidelines, and we have early missionaries in the community who propagate those guidelines, who live out those guidelines and values. And so our goal for the near term is simply to continue to add more people to the community who successfully follow these guidelines and values. Because the ethos that this early community is setting is going to define the ethos of the product forever. And so this year, we're 100% focused on getting that community and continue to foster this amazing community and grow that community slowly. And so we're not focused on scaling. We're not focused on like trying to like go viral. Like that's not our goal at all. Like it's purely to build this tight-knit community. And then after that, once we have a solid foundation for this community, then it's to like start to open up the gates and allow the community to further grow the community themselves. So a lot of crypto projects do this, right? Like in the early days of Ethereum, for example, there was a handful of people who really set the tone and the ethos of what Ethereum was, what they were trying to be. And it was a very different community from Bitcoin. It was much more open and open-minded and like welcoming to newcomers, etc. And then once they did that for the first couple of years, then the evangelists from that community went out and expanded the Ethereum community to new people and spread that ethos. So, this year we're focused on that early incubation phase. And then over the next 2-3 years, it's how do we grow this community and scale this community beyond these first set of people that we have.
Got it. I'm actually excited, and we'll try to find some time to really get involved because I've really enjoyed the experience so far. Just signed up, as I said, this week. I've seen these very, very intriguing topics out there. One of the values that I believe that TruStory could potentially bring is this idea of I don't have necessarily the time to research all topics that are important to me or that matter to me. But at the same time, I realized that you need to invest time in order to have a objective opinion on certain things. So I see TruStory as this place where I can share some topics that I want to get quality opinions on. And then I know that there will be this highly intellectual community, which is going to give me this both sides of the coin, so to say. So I definitely think that there's a lot of potential on this side.
Yeah, and that's what some people do. Like some people, what they'll do is they find something that someone says online, and they themselves might not have a perspective yet. But what they'll do is they'll post it in the app and then like tag people and say like, hey, like, what do you think about this? And then like once the debate starts and you see both sides, then it's easier for you to build on top of their arguments because it gives you a starting point. So yeah, like definitely, we definitely already see that behavior happening in the app.
I wanted to also ask you a few questions which are not related directly to TruStory, but I see and as we talked initially in this conversation, I've seen your drive. I've understood your drive into building stuff and into just like devoting your time to things that matter. So I would be curious to learn about your daily routine, if you have such a routine. Like how does, for example, today's day go for you?
Sure. My daily routine. So obviously my days are quite predictable. As a founder, I kind of have to just deal with that unpredictability. But in face of that unpredictability, uncertainty, ambiguity, what I try to do is introduce consistency on the edges. And what I mean by that is like I usually sleep at the same time every day and wake up at the same time every day if I can. And then every day I usually go out to the gym in the morning before my day starts. So, and I eat, pretty much the same things every day. And so by like kind of the essentials for sleeping, eating, and working out, like I keep those consistent so that everything else, even if my whole day is crazy, I always have these things to come back to and know that like I get to reset and start over again. So that's my routine. And I truly believe that how much you can do mentally is highly impacted by how physically well you are. So I really care about being active and eating well because that highly impacts how productive I am. Like even if I eat a shitty meal or I don't get enough sleep or I don't go to the gym, I notice like a huge drop in my productivity. And so I try to do that almost every day to make sure that I'm at the top of my game.
If we have to get in a little more detail, so how much do you aim for 8 hours sleep every day? And when do you go to bed?
Yeah, I'm a little bit weird in the sense that I don't really need 8 hours. I'm lucky in the sense that I can get away with 6. So I aim to get 6. Sometimes on weekends I'll get 8, but I think I'm one of those weird body types where I can do away with less sleep. But in college, I did something so stupid where I spent 4 or 5 years getting 4 hours of sleep a night, thinking that I was being more productive. But I've come to realize that that was such a waste of my time and I should have just gotten sleep because I'm way more productive.
So at what time do you go to bed usually?
I go to bed around 10:30.
And then 4 a.m., you're up.
Yeah, 4:30, 4:30-ish. Yep.
Okay, that's intense for most people. And do you have any other sort of practice that you do, or you stick to the early gym and the regular eating habits?
Yeah, honestly, I think people overcomplicate like what makes someone productive. Like if you eat well and you sleep well and you work out and you're active, like you get 90% of the way there. I do yoga on weekends just to kind of relax and take a break from the gym. So that's the other thing I do. But like, there's no crazy secret to productivity. Like people think like, oh, like I should be meditating every day. Like just keep it simple. Like people have been doing this for, centuries. Like all you need is sleep, good food, and be active. So that's how I think about it.
Now, a final question I have, which is a little cliche, but I think an important question overall. How do you feel about being a female in traditionally male industries, right? Like from, as you said, like from your very early years, you've been into maths, you've been into engineering, finance, then crypto and coding. How do you feel about that? What has been your experience with this? What do you think is the reason that there are fewer females in these sort of fields?
I give the same answer when anyone asks me this question, which is that like my whole life, I never thought of myself as a female doing X. Like I just did what I wanted. And what I wanted to do was this. Like I was, naturally a physics nerd in high school. And usually, a lot of times it's not female that are physics nerds, but I was. And so I pursued that interest and I ended up where I did. So like, if I had to be completely honest, I never considered myself a female doing X until I got to about college and Goldman, when people started to ask me this question. It's like, how does it feel to be female and doing this? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. I just thought I was one of you and I'm just doing it, right? I personally just don't think about it. I just do what I think I want to do. And in terms of like the fact that there's aren't many females, I think it just comes down to interest, right? Like a lot of times females are not interested in being the CEO. Like they want to do other stuff. And so it's not a bad thing. It's just there's biological differences. And as a result, you have people who are interested in different things. And it's just that sometimes female are not particularly interested in being an executive per se. But for people who are, I definitely think there should be, I don't think it's an exception, but it should be just accepted the fact that, yeah, we're a little bit different and we want to be an executive.
Yeah, I love it. I think as well, like people should just follow whatever they're interested in and whatever their natural inclination is. And maybe we're overthinking this, but still, I think a lot of people would have thought of this. I wanted to address it. Preethi, it's been a pleasure to have this call. Before we finish, just let our audience know how can they sign up for TruStory and where they can find you?
So in terms of signing up for TruStory, if you just visit our website, TruStory.io, which is TRUSTORY.io, we have a waitlist sign up there. And then to reach me, I'm on Twitter at IAM_Preethi. And yeah, I'm available anytime. I'd love any feedback. And especially people who've been in high school debate or who enjoy intellectual discourse, onboarding those type of people onto the app. So feel free to sign up and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. I'll be definitely sending you quite a lot of referrals.
Awesome. Thanks, George.
Thank you.
A couple of things before you take off. First, if you enjoyed this episode, be generous and share it with your best friends. They deserve it, they will appreciate it, and they will be grateful to you. Second, I want to draw your attention to Nexo, without which this episode wouldn't be possible. If you're like me, and you believe the long-term value of crypto will grow, then Nexo might be a useful tool for you. The company allows you to get instant access to cash in 45 fiat currencies without selling your Bitcoin, Ether, or other crypto assets. In case you don't need a cash loan, Nexo can also generate you passive income, up to 6.5% per year on your stablecoins or euro. What's more, interest is paid on a daily basis, meaning you can add or withdraw funds to your interest-earning account at any time. Now you should know that the level of automation, convenience, and flexibility that Nexo provides are vastly superior to what any other similar service offers. This is the reason why I myself joined the Nexo team. Having said that, none of this is investment advice. I just genuinely believe these services might be useful for you. You can explore more at nexo.io. Finally, if you have any suggestions, feedback, or anything you want to tell me, you can find me on Twitter at borderlessbtc or my website on borderlesscrypto.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon again.